Is
So
there?
yeah, so so this is Hamas forced conversions, forced marriages, and how they were treating the hostages. So this is actually a pretty tough topic, and there's a lot of the reason it's a tough topic is because people get mad no matter what you say about this topic, no matter how kind of fair you are, you always get in trouble. It's a very sensitive topic.
I also wanted to talk about this too, because ever since the beginning, when they released the first hostages, like, all the Muslims were like, look at how good they treat them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, they don't actually. And I want to highlight that they actually tried to force them to convert. They talked about marrying the hostages, like all the psychological torment types of stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, that's actually a big point. Hamas is now, for some reason, somehow been seen as freedom fighters, and they're seen as like the heroes of Palestine, and not just among Muslims. Well, Muslims for one, there's a lot of false propaganda out there, and two, they're also seen as by lefties as these like freedom fighters. So it's worth it to kind of talk about what they've actually been doing, and how they're treating the captives. The behavior that they're doing is completely unethical, completely unacceptable, and this is why we wanted to talk about this. We also want to kind of humanize the hostages, and also put the whole war in context. Now just to kind of, before we get into it, like I was saying, this topic is very difficult. I'm not an expert on the whole Palestine-Israel political situation. It's a complicated thing that's been going on for 150 years. And nothing I say is going to, nothing I'm going to say, or nothing we're going to say, is trying to, belittle the victims of the war, the children that have died, the innocent people on both sides. There's nothing I can say that would undermine the seriousness or the sadness of the real human suffering, right? And so just to give a bit of context about what makes the situation so messy. And the first thing is there's widespread Jewish conspiracy theories in the world, right? In the Muslim world especially. AP, you've talked about this as well, like how in your childhood, you've heard all of these stories about Jews. In fact, these things are spreading even worse now on the internet that's kind of one of the casualties of free speech, is all of these wild things as openly being spread on social media now, on Twitter, and
And when we push back against them, people say stuff like, "Oh, why are you so obsessed with this? Why are you defending this? Why are you talking about this all the time?" The issue is, right now, especially, there is a huge information war and a huge pollution of information going on the internet, related to the conflict and related to Jews, very much fed by Islamist sentiments, very much fed by these terrorist organizations, financed by probably certain interests, certain nations within the Middle East, such as Qatar and others. Let's get to Hamas. So Hamas literally is actually an abbreviation and stands for Islamic Resistance Movement. So Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya. It's so Islamic Resistance Movement. It is a directly Islamist organization whose entire goal it is, as it is stated, to to eradicate, to in their words, cleanse the land of the filth of the Jews, as one of their popular spokespeople has said quite recently, and to then establish an Islamic caliphate in what they call Palestine, in Jerusalem. So the entire goal here would be to get rid of the Jews and then to re-establish Islam as a global power and restart the expansionist, imperialist nature of Islam as a state, which was forcibly ended by the West over 100 years ago. So this is the group that we're dealing with. They call themselves resistance in order to kind of legitimize it and say, oh, we are just fighting oppression, but they are actually fighting for oppression. And they also very, very much rely on anti-Jewish narratives that, as you have brought up, we have heard all the time in the Muslim world. I grew up with the idea that possibly in the near future we will go and fight the Jews and we will kill them all and cleanse them, and then the Mahdi will come and so on, which is me, by the way. I'm here. So we heard things like this all the time. We heard that there's going to be a massacre and all that, and Jews are behind all the bad things in the world. And right now, when the conflict is very, very heated up and heightened, and the tension is very high, we have all these sentiments coming to the surface and becoming very, very, very popular and very difficult to fight, because there are, as said, certain states, certain certain interests at play here that prop up these narratives, these anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli narratives. Lots of people are falling for it. Even lots of people who are normally on our side of things. Even lots of people who normally recognize that Islam is a big problem, or that Islamization is a big problem. Lots of people on that side, even those, are targeted and unfortunately fall for the false propaganda against Jews and Israel. But we have to realize, while there is some great amount of human suffering going on there, the most of the narrative is completely disingenuous and just false propaganda. And we need to establish peace without buying into the whole disgusting anti-Jewish propaganda that's going on.
Absolutely, yeah. And you kind of talked about this. So Hamas, just a reminder for people that don't know who Hamas is, leading the charter is absolutely nuts. Like, they have total rejection of, this is the original charter, so they've posted something in 2017 as well. But like, Israel will rise and will remain erect until Islam eliminates it, as it has eliminated others before it. There's no solution for Palestinian question except through jihad. The entire land of Palestine is an Islamic waqf, meaning an endowment, right? And if I can just go to there's some more. It's just wild, right? Like, reading this, it sounds like you're reading an Al-Qaeda manual, right? The Islamic resistance movement is a distinguished Palestinian movement whose allegiance is to Allah and whose way of life is Islam. It strives to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. Israel will exist. Okay, they talked about that until it's obliterated, right? This is what Hamas stands for. If people don't know this, you just have to read about it, right? And they're appealing to, I remember Hassan Radwan once mentioned that it's interesting that when he was, that somehow the politics is always pulled into Islam, right? Even when he was a Muslim, he was like, he felt that was like annoying. It's like, what do I have to do with these things in these foreign lands? But apparently, if you're a Muslim, this is the liberation of Palestine is an individual duty for every Muslim, wherever he may be. So this is all mixed up into the whole lefty thing. You have the whole lefty thing going on, then you have the Muslim thing on top of it, and they're all like colliding with the Palestine movement, right?
This is the thing. They often make it look like this is not about religion. It's just about human rights and just fighting against oppression and so on. But we hear it. But we know very well that in the Muslim world, it is always brought up by Muslims that this is every Muslim's religious duty to support Palestine and to fight for the liberation of Palestine, which is also one of the reasons why there is no acceptance of so-called Palestinian refugees into other Muslim countries, because accepting refugees from those territories into their countries would result in the lowering of the Muslim Palestinian population in the region, and Muslim countries don't want that, because the Palestinians are supposed to be a pawn with which they can continue fighting against the Jews for the domination of Jerusalem and its surroundings. That is what everything depends on.
This was a good video. We watched this today. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to point out, like, the creepiest thing about their 1988 charter to me is so you have the passage where they quote Muhammad in Sahih Muslim, where he says that the end will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, and the Jews are hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees call out, "Oh, Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." So the goal is to wipe out Jews. That's Article 7. Then Article 8 gives their little slogan, and it's death for the sake of Allah is their highest goal. And I mean, just think about that. So what do you want as an organization? What are you here for? We want death for our enemies and death for ourselves. We want them to die and go to hell, and then we want to die and go to Jannah. But die. That's the win-win situation for them. They want their enemies dead and they want themselves dead. But I mean, it's like, that's like as extreme a death cult as you can get. We want everyone dead. We want our enemies dead, and we want people on our side dead. We want death all around. And that's why it's just amazing that you'll get all these different, yay, these guys are just out for freedom. And what? You missed the whole we want everyone dead part. Anyway.
We even have Fatih Hamad, who is one of my favorite Hamas people, who is a spokesperson in Gaza, who exclusively speaks in Arabic and says the most messed up things. Said, for example, a few years ago that Palestinians are a nation of martyrs and that they excel at being human shields. These are his words. He said they excel at being human shields. Then we had him saying that that Palestinians would love to, or Gazans would love to give their lives, put on suicide bombs, and in any way give their lives in the fight and die. Ismail Haniyeh, who is now dead, said that the blood of Palestinian children, adults, women, men, the elderly is necessary, and more blood is needed for this fight. So they have, Yahya Sinwar was quoted as saying, when he was asked, is it worth that 10,000 Palestinians die for this conflict? He said, even 100,000 would be worth, and so on. So it is a very, very messed up mindset that these people have. Death cult.